Welcome to the 8th part in my Jujutsu Kaisen arc analysis series. So during this video, we're pretty much going to be caught up to the latest story arc of Jujutsu Kaisen, as we're covering two of the most recently completed story arcs, which of course are the Itadori's Extermination arc and the Perfect Preparation arc. While the Itadori Extermination arc deals with the immediate aftermath of the Shibuya Incident, we also get the formal introduction of Yuta Okkotsu into the current timeline of Jujutsu Kaisen. Of course, this individual featured as the protagonist of the Jujutsu Kaisen prequel story Volume 0. He makes his return as an executioner, returning from overseas and being the only special grade Jujutsu sorcerer that the higher-ups can count on. They order Yuta to execute Yuji, while the Perfect Preparation arc centers around Yuji and the others getting ready for a dangerous battle royale organized by none other than Pseudo Geto. This event is dubbed as the Culling Games. With Megumi's sister being involved against her will, he is left with no choice but to ask for help from Yuji, as the Tokyo Jujutsu High students prepare by meeting with Master Tengen. The recent developments within Jujutsu Kaisen are fascinating, including Yuji befriending Chozo, as well as the numerous battles that take place over the span of these two arcs, including Yuji facing off against Yuta, and even Maki Zenin, who has a significant role within the Perfect Preparation arc, as she makes her shocking return to her family home, and faces off against several of the elders, as well as the Hei, who are the strongest group of Jujutsu sorcerers within the Zenin family, as well as the Kukuru unit, who are a lower branch of the Hei, mostly consisting of individuals who have refined their martial arts and don't necessarily possess innate Jujutsu techniques. So without further delay, let's talk about the aftermath of the Shibuya Incident arc and the highly anticipated Culling Games. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. The Itadori Extermination arc occurs between chapters 137 to 143. It spans the very short length of 7 chapters, as Jujutsu Kaisen returns to its format of bite-sized story arcs that we of course got so used to prior to the Shibuya Incident arc. It had started at the end of January 2021 and had ended in March of the same year. Now we begin with chapter 137 with Akutami showing us an aerial shot of Japan, and there appears to be a void surrounding where Shibuya used to be, and turning the page we see several speech bubbles as we hear the opinions of several voices discussing the aftermath of the last arc. Now typically in shonen stories we don't really get to feel the aftermath of a major significant story arc. Usually the characters rest and recuperate and move on with the story, but with Jujutsu Kaisen, Akutami makes us settle in with the consequences of the Shibuya incident, and it is refreshing to see how impactful the incident was, and all of the changes within the world that were caused by it. The Shibuya incident is dubbed as one of the biggest disasters in the history of Japan. A large portion of the population had gone missing, including famous notable figures like politicians and celebrities, and Tokyo has also become overwhelmed with cursed spirits that are freely roaming the streets. There is chaos literally at every turn. Yuta appears within the story when he saves a young girl with the help of the special grade vengeful curse spirit Rika. Now this is strange because at the end of Volume 0 we did see that the curse of Rika had been lifted, and she had even bid farewell to Yuta. So as far as I know, it's not really explained as to how Rika is still helping Yuta. I guess it is nice to see that he hasn't lost any of his abilities, and if anything he has become even stronger after refining his powers for a year. Now at the end of chapter 137, Yuta meets with the Jujutsu higher-ups. He ends up entering into a binding vow with the higher-ups. The terms of this vow are that Yuta is to kill Yuji Itadori himself. He tells the higher-ups that he doesn't care if Yuji is one of Gojo's pupils. His actions were the reason that Toge Inumaki's arm was cut off in Shibuya. Because of this, it appears that Yuta has plenty of reason to take out Yuji himself. At the end of this point, 5 notices are released from the Jujutsu headquarters. The first being that Geto has been confirmed to have survived, and subsequently his death sentence has been reinstated. Secondly, Gojo has been deemed as an accomplice to Geto during the Shibuya incident, and for this reason it is a criminal act now to remove Gojo from the prison seal. Thirdly, Yaga, the principal of Tokyo Jujutsu High, also has a death sentence placed on him for inciting Gojo and Geto, deeming him to be the cause of the Shibuya incident. The fourth notice is that Yuji Itadori's death sentence has also been reinstated. And lastly, the special grade sorcerer Yuta Okkotsu has been appointed as Yuji's executioner. In chapter 138, the Zenin family are informed that the current head Naobito Zenin has indeed died. Now the question attention turns towards the successor of Naobito. Upon reading his will, it is revealed that under normal circumstances, Naoya Zenin would become the 27th head of the Zenin family. But there is a clause within the will of Naobito. It appears to be from a written agreement that he had made with Toji Fushiguro, which states that if Gojo had died or something had happened to him, then Megumi would become the new head of the Zenin family. This of course angers Naoya. When he learns that Megumi is looking for Yuji within Tokyo, he sets out to kill the two of them. We see Yuji for the first time in the story arc when he is sat in solitude. He is approached by Chozo, who reassures him that he can return to Jujutsu High and that he doesn't need to stay with him. But Yuji responds with concern as he states that Sukuna is planning something involved with Megumi and that he himself has killed far too many people to return to his prior life. He even reminds Chozo that he had killed his two brothers, but Chozo tells him that he has forgiven Yuji because after all they are brothers. The two of them proceed to then take out more cursed spirits, while unknown to them Naoya and Yuta are heading for their direction, as the two of them desire to kill Yuji. While Yuji and Chozo are taking out a large number of cursed spirits, they are interrupted by the arrival of Naoya Zenin. He updates Yuji that the execution order has been reinstated for him, and that he desires to kill Megumi. With his incredible speed, Naoya charges towards Yuji and strikes him on his face. Now before their battle commences, an overwhelming presence appears before them, as Yuji initially believes that it is Gojo that has appeared, but when he looks up we learn that Yuta Okkotsu has entered the fray, and similarly to Naoya, it appears that Yuta is wasting little time as he prepares his weapon, getting ready to attack. Naoya ends up teaming up with Yuta as their objective appears to be the same, as Yuta begins his fight against Yuji and Naoya faces off against Chozo. Yuji of course runs away from Yuta as it's pretty pointless for him to face off against a special grade sorcerer. He realizes that Yuta has an immense amount of cursed energy, and he compensates for his lack of physical power with his cursed energy reinforcement, as Yuji realizes that Yuta's abilities are the opposite of his own. It appears that Yuta has more cursed energy than Gojo, and it is thanks to Gojo's 6 eyes that his energy expenditure as he releases cursed techniques is close to zero. So despite Yuta having more cursed energy than Gojo, Gojo is still the best because he can never run out of cursed energy. He finds it difficult to anticipate Yuta's attacks because his entire body, including his sword, is constantly surging with cursed energy. It's not even about Yuji predicting his next move. With the way that Yuta is fighting, it's as if every attack that he has is decisive, and he can limit the damage to himself to a minimum. When Yuji remembers the dying words of Nanami, he reaffirms his resolve by stating that he cannot die just yet. As their battle continues, Yuji is able to find a dagger and imbue it with cursed energy, as he fights off Yuta, who is wielding his katana. While Yuji is focused on Yuta's katana, his opponent takes the chance to front kick him, while immediately after striking him with his sword. After Yuji's dagger is broken, he immediately breaks Yuta's sword. He isn't surprised because Yuji is Gojo's pupil after all, as he accepts that his battle against Yuji was never going to be easy. But before their battle can continue, the cursed spirit Rika arrives and apprehends Yuji. While holding him still, Yuta stabs him in the chest with his broken blade, as it appears that he has killed Yuji. This strike gets the attention of Sukuna, who appears to be smiling in response to Yuji being stabbed. We then turn our attention towards Chozo's battle against Naoya, as the Zenin appears to have the upper hand in the battle. His movements appear to be too fast for Chozo to keep up with. Chozo then reveals that he is the eldest of the Cursed Womb 10 paintings, and he attempts to make a comeback by using his ability Flowing Red skill, Stack, but Chozo is stabbed by Naoya, as he hopes to make his opponent now bleed out. But when Chozo begins to speak about the importance of siblings, he begins to manipulate his blood and fire it towards Naoya. Now because Chozo is a half human, half curse, it is impossible for him to bleed out. As long as he has cursed energy, he can utilize it to continue producing blood. This is why a death painting who is a cursed human hybrid can never die of blood loss. Chozo turns the tide of the battle as he traps Naoya and takes him out with his ability Supernova. Now before Chozo can celebrate, Yuta appears as he is carrying an unconscious Yuji. Before he can even retaliate, he is knocked out by Yuta. Yuta tells Naoya that it appears that he has been hurt, as he realizes that Chozo's blood manipulation ability has poisoned him. Yuta strikes a deal with Naoya, as he offers to heal him with his reversed curse technique, if in return Naoya will inform the Jujutsu higher-ups of Yuji's death. After this, we have one of the most important flashbacks in the entire series. Now this flashback comes to us in the form of a dream that Yuji has, as we are shown a moment from Yuji's early childhood when he was a baby. We see Yuji's father holding him as he is speaking to his grandfather. His grandfather tells his son to give up on that woman. We can assume that he is referring to Yuji's mother, as he warns him that if he doesn't, then he will die. Yuji's grandfather loses his patience and states that he knew that Yuji's father had wanted a child, and he is aware that it didn't happen with this woman called Kaori. Before he elaborates on the death of Kaori, he is interrupted interrupted by the arrival of a strange lady with scars on her head. These stitched scars on her forehead are similar to those that we had seen on the forehead of Noritoshi Kamo in the past, and presently that are on the forehead of Pseudo Geto. Does Kenjaku have a role to play in the birth of Yuji? Before we get any answers, Yuji awakes from his dream. Now what is interesting is that Chozo and Yuji were having a discussion before they were interrupted by Naoya, where Chozo had asked Yuji whether if his father had a scarred forehead. We know that Chozo's father is Noritoshi Kamo. Could he somehow be related to Yuji's mother, as the two figures are seen to have these similar scars on their foreheads? And of course, I drew the link to Kenjaku. Noritoshi Kamo was controlled by Kenjaku, so does this mean that Yuji's mother was also controlled by Kenjaku? These are of course points of speculation, but there is a lot that we can gather from Yuji's prophetic dream. When Yuji wakes up, he sees Yuta in front of him. His senior classman begins to laugh in relief, as he is glad that Yuji is okay. He then divulges his true intentions, as it is revealed that Yuta has been putting up a facade this entire time, and back in September he was visited by Gojo himself. He had given Yuta a plan to execute in the event that Gojo would be unable to act of his own accord. It appears that Gojo had done a lot of planning prior to him being sealed, as though he was expecting himself to be sealed within the prison. Yuta continues to state that he had formed a binding vow with the Jujutsu higher-ups. This had forced him into a situation where he had to kill the vessel of Sukuna, but he had conveniently found a loophole to get around this, as he immediately healed Yuji's heart straight after stabbing it. So he had fulfilled the conditions of his binding vow while at the same time preventing the death of Yuji and honoring his plan that he had made with Gojo. And to be honest, it's nice to get some downtime here, seeing the protagonist of Volume 0 speaking to our current protagonist. Yuta acts as a mentor and guides Yuji through his troubled feelings. Yuta reveals that he is helping Yuji because he is important to people who are important to him, and similar to Yuji, he too had once bore a power that he couldn't handle. Yuta had believed that this power was forced onto him, but in actual fact he had invited it upon himself. But on the other hand, Yuji possesses a power that isn't his own, so he isn't to blame for the events of the Shibuya Incident. Megumi then suddenly appears before the two of them, as he tries to convince Yuji to return back to Tokyo Jujutsu High, as he plans to rejoin with the other older students. But Yuji tells him not to act like everything is normal, like nothing had happened. It is at this point that Yuta begins to think to himself that Yuji is unsure whether if he deserves to live or not, and it was for this reason that Yuji was holding back during his fight against him. Yuji tells Megumi that he had killed people, and because of him a lot of people died. Megumi shares the responsibility and tells him that it is their fault, and he shouldn't be selfish by trying to give up all alone. They are not heroes who are fighting for justice. They are Jujutsu sorcerers after all. Nobody can judge them for their actions, and it is for this reason that they must continue to prove the worth of their existence. They don't have the luxury of thinking about themselves. They just have to continue with saving people. He reminds Yuji that this was the principle that he had adopted, which backed up all of Yuji's actions. Megumi, who is aware of Yuji's desire, asks him to redeem himself by saving him first, as he reveals that Noritoshi Kamo, or in other words Pseudo Geto, has made plans for every individual who is involved with Jujutsu sorcery to face off in a battle royale called the Culling Game. This includes Megumi's sister Sumiki, so it is for this reason that he is begging Yuji that he needs his strength. The Itadori's Extermination arc ends with us being shown a list of 8 rules for the Culling Game. There are a few notable rules, like Rule 5, which states that points are determined by the game master, and they indicate the value of a player's life. And as a general rule, sorcerers are worth 5 points and non-sorcerers are worth 1 point. The following rule, number 6, states that excluding the point value of a player's own life, players may expend 100 points to negotiate with the game master in order to add 1 new rule to the Culling Game. So the objective here appears to be a point-based elimination system, which of course is similar to battle royale games like Fortnite or Apex Legends, and even like the events of the cult classic Japanese film Battle Royale. So with Yuji's death having been staged for the second time, we now turn our attention over to the Perfect Preparation arc. This arc involves the Jujutsu High students meeting with Master Tengen himself as they prepare for the Culling Games, as well as catching up with Maki Zenin and the recent shocking events surrounding her character. The Perfect Preparation arc takes place between chapters 144 to 158, spanning a total of 15 chapters. It is the 10th story arc of Jujutsu Kaisen. We can split this 15 chapter story arc into a few segments. We'll start by talking about Maki Zenin's involvement within this arc, which occurs between chapters 148 to 152. These chapters are titled after the arc, as they are called Perfect Preparation Parts 1 to 4, and chapter 152 being called Perfect Preparation Epilogue. Chapter 148 begins with a scarred Maki returning to the home of the Zenin family. She is greeted by Naoya, who taunts her about her physical appearance appearance. He reminds her of the days that he used to bully her, as he tells her that she couldn't use cursed techniques or see cursed spirits, and the only thing that was going for her was her face. And now that it's been burnt, nobody will even look in her direction. Maki ignores him and instead heads underground in order to unlock the Cursed Tools warehouse. She meets her mother, who forbids her from entering, but Maki tells her that she has permission from the new head of the Zenin family, Megumi. Upon entering the Cursed Tools warehouse, she discovers that it is empty, and she finds her father, Ogi Zenin, sitting in front of the body of Mai. Ogi Zenin has devised a plan to execute Megumi, Maki, and Mai, labeling them as rebels that are plotting to free Gojo. He, along with Junichi and Naoya, are taking advantage of the notice that was posted by Jujutsu headquarters, the second one which had declared Gojo as an accomplice to the Shibuya Incident, and had thus made it illegal to free him from the prison realm. Ogi's logic is that if he is willing to even kill his own daughter, then it will strengthen the trust that the Jujutsu headquarters has in him, and thus boosting the credibility of the Zenin family, while also planning to gain back the leadership from Megumi. During their battle, Maki wields a cursed tool known as Dragon Bone. The weapon accumulates cursed energy and ejects it out from the back of the blade. The father and daughter begin their battle as they clash. Despite having broken the blade of a father's sword, somehow he is able to retaliate and cut Maki down, and at the end of chapter 148 it appears that she has been defeated. Ogi drags the bodies of his daughters into a room full of cursed spirits in an attempt to dispose of their bodies. Seeing no other way out of their situation, Maki ends up sacrificing herself by making use of the last bit of her cursed energy in order to create a cursed tool for Maki. Before Mai makes her exit from the story, she leaves her sister with one final request, which is to destroy everything. After awakening, Maki is able to unleash an incredible amount of energy which destroys all of the cursed spirits. This of course gains the attention of Ogi Zenin. Her father begins to feel an old fear as he is reminded of Toji Fushiguro, seeing that Maki resembles him in this moment. When Ogi attempts to kill Maki, she swiftly cuts him down. After killing her father, she continues to take out the strongest squads within the Zenin family. She is focused on fulfilling her promise to her sister to destroy everything. This includes the Zenin family's most elite soldiers, the Hei and their subdivision, the Kukuru unit. Absolute chaos ensues as Maki avenges the death of her sister. After taking out the strongest warriors of her clan, she now finds herself face to face with the smug Naoya Zenin. After we were introduced to Toji Fushiguro in the Gojo's past arc, and we got to see him again during the Shibuya Incident arc, I find it fascinating that Akutami had found a spiritual successor to his character in the form of Maki Zenin. I really enjoyed this unpredictable twist within the story, and it was highly satisfying to see Maki take out all of her frustrations on her family, the very family that had ridiculed and humiliated her, and had put her and her sister through so much trouble. It was the Zenin family, after all, that had put a rift between Mai and Maki. I love that a character undergoes this much growth, as we were introduced to her during volume 0 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Her boost in power and her growth as a character feels well earned, and it makes her rampage across the Zenin household feel that much more satisfactory. In chapter 151, we see that Naoya was referred to as a genius sorcerer when he was young, and he had heard about the black sheep of the Zenin family, Toji Fushiguro. He was dubbed as a failure as he didn't possess an ounce of cursed energy. Naoya had wondered how pitiful this individual called Toji must look. But after laying eyes upon Toji Fushiguro, he had witnessed a fierce expression emanating from his eyes. And now that he is facing off against Maki, who appears to resemble Toji in strength and power, he states that she cannot be him. Naoya treats this battle as a test to see who will stand beside Toji and Gojo, who is worthy of standing beside the strongest Jujutsu sorcerers. He wants to defeat Maki and prove that he is worthy of such a position. Initially, Maki has difficulty keeping up with Naoya's speed, but with her newfound body, she is able to deduce that Naoya makes 24 movements per second. Thanks to this, she is able to beat his curse technique and defeat Naoya. The last individual on her path of vengeance is her mother, as she inflicts a fatal wound upon her. With her last ounce of strength, she carries a knife towards Naoya and kills him. Maki leaves Mai's body with Nishimiya, as it appears that Maki had continued to target every member of the Zenin clan. Maki's actions had led to the Gojo clan and Kamo clan proposing to remove the Zenin clan from the big three families, but Jujutsu headquarters are putting their proposal on hold. Maki had fulfilled the dying request of her sister, as indeed she did destroy everything. The Zenin family is no more. Not that any of its surviving members care, however. Megumi is not going to be phased. Events like this really make me believe that we are heading towards the endgame of this story. With the Culling Game about to take place, what will Maki's role be within the story? Let's now turn our attention towards Yuji and the others as they attempt to meet with Master Tengen. Their priorities are to find out the motives of Noritoshi Kamo, as well as figuring out a method to free Gojo from the prison realm. Yuji Yuji, Yuta, and Chozo meet up with Maki and Yuki. They initially have difficulty getting through Tengen's barrier, but with Chozo's help they are able to get through it. They are then met by a strange individual who reveals himself to be Master Tengen. When Yuji questions why Master Tengen looks the way that he does, he explains that this is the result of 500 years of aging, in addition to a failed attempt to merge with a star plasma vessel, which had occurred during the Gojo's past arc. Through Master Tengen, we learn that the being that had controlled Noritoshi Kamo and Suguru Geto is called Kenjaku. Before Master Tengen divulges any more information, he tells Yuta, Yuki, and Chozo that two of them must stay behind to serve as his guards. He then states that Kenjaku's objective is to force the evolution of all human beings throughout the land of Japan. Kenjaku plans to force the evolution of people by merging them with Master Tengen. If this is to happen, then the boundary between people and curses vanishes. It will result in evil spreading around the world, meaning that what had taken place within Shibuya could spread across the entire world. Tengen reveals that now that he has evolved, he is more curse spirit than human, and this makes him a target for curse spirit manipulation. The whole point behind the Culling Game is to begin the merging process. It is for this reason that Master Tengen requires two guards. Kenjaku is the second most powerful barrier user after Tengen. He is unsure as to when Kenjaku will undo the seals on the tombs of the Star Corridor. Master Tengen continues to state that himself, the Star Plasma Vessel, and the user of the Six Eyes are all connected by fate, because in the past Kenjaku had lost twice to the user of the Six Eyes. On this occasion, Kenjaku had decided on sealing the user of the Six Eyes, because if he is to kill the Six Eyes user while they are young, then another will be born. But understandably, with Gojo sealed, another Six Eyes user cannot appear within the world. The Culling Game will not end even if they end up killing the Game Master Kenjaku. The game only ends when all of the players are dead or all players refuse to participate and die. Yuta refers to the sixth rule, as he states that they have no choice but to participate within the Culling Game and to add a rule where Sumiki and the other unwilling participants can get out. Megumi adds to this by stating that they should also free Gojo, because he could put an end to this situation within an instant. Yuki and Chozo decide to stay behind with Master Tengen, as he hands Yuji and the others the back of the prison realm, an item that is necessary for freeing Gojo. If they are able to open this rear entrance into the prison realm, then they will be able to free Gojo. The only way to do so is to gain the help of one of the participants of the Culling Game. She is a sorcerer from 1,000 years ago who refers to herself as an angel. She possesses an ability to extinguish any curse technique. Her name is Hana Kurusu. Without her help, it is going to be impossible to free Gojo. After knowing more information about the Culling Game, the group now comes up with a strategy. With Chozo and Yuki obviously staying behind to guard Master Tengen, Maki decides to head back to the Zenin family in order to collect all of the cursed tools that they are keeping. And we've already spoken about how things turned out for Maki earlier. While Yuta decides to head towards a colony in order to take part in the Culling Game immediately. He wants to gather as much information as possible before Megumi and his sister participate. While Yuji and Megumi are tasked to find a suspended third-year student called Kinji Hakari. He is an incredibly powerful ally, even stronger than Yuta, and because they are so low on numbers, they need any help that they can get. After all of this, at the end of chapter 146, we appear to be introduced to a failing stand-up comic called Fumihiko Takaba. It is revealed that he is a participant within the Culling Game. Chapter 147 is dedicated to Principal Yaga, as we catch up with him since the order was placed for his execution. During this chapter, we see a flashback where we learn that he had gotten into trouble for creating a fully independent cursed corpse. This cursed corpse was indeed Panda. At the end of the chapter, the principal of Kyoto Jujutsu High and a mysterious individual gang up on Yaga. The two of them execute him before Panda can arrive to help. Panda mourns the death of his father, but he holds nothing against Yoshinobu, stating that he isn't like humans. He realized that the two principals were never on bad terms, and he understands that Yoshinobu was only carrying out orders from above. So despite him not hating Yoshinobu, he tells him to remember even pandas can cry. In their search for Hakari, Megumi and Yuji find themselves in an underground illegal fighting circuit for sorcerers. The boss of the circuit allows Yuji to participate in a fight, but he prevents Megumi from doing so. It is revealed that Yuji's first opponent is Panda. If he is able to defeat his opponent, then he will take part in a fixed fight. For this, he will have to meet their boss Hakari. Panda allows Yuji to win. Since Hakari knows who Panda is, he figures it would be better if somebody who he doesn't know speaks to him. After Yuji wins, Kinji Hakari requests to see him. We learn that Kinji is also accompanied by another third-year Jujutsu High student called Kirara Hoshi. She is revealed to be security in case Megumi decides to do anything funny. Yuji is escorted by Kirara as he finally meets Hakari, while Megumi and Panda take out all of the henchmen that are guarding the room on the outside. It is then that they are seen by Kirara. Megumi prevents her from returning back to Hakari's room. During Hakari's conversation with Yuji, he ends up getting a call from Kirara. He takes this as a sign that something is wrong, and he begins to fight Yuji. As Yuji attempts to explain himself, Hakari doesn't seem interested at all. Meanwhile, returning to Megumi and Panda facing off against Kirara, we learn the reason behind why Hakari had gotten expelled. He had gotten into trouble with the conservative Jujutsu higher-ups, who don't like using cursed techniques that involve modern technology, like cursed videotapes. Kirara refuses to believe that Jujutsu High needs their help. She believes that they have an ulterior motive. Why would they need help if Gojo is around? They try to tell her that Gojo has been sealed, but Kirara doesn't appear to believe them. Megumi decides that if he can convince Kirara, then it will lead to a better outcome with Hakari. Megumi is able to beat Kirara's curse technique, which results in him winning his battle against her. He then pleads for her to hear him out, as he explains their circumstance to her. They then rush towards Yuji, who appears to be in the middle of a fight against Hakari. Yuji tells Megumi and Panda not to interfere, as he takes a beating from Hakari. The third year realizes that Yuji is not even resisting. He keeps standing back up and taking hits from him. Yuji wants Hakari to accept him, so he is not going to dodge or fight back. He tells Yuji that he is willing to listen to him as long as he remains standing. He continues to attack him while questioning him, as he asks Yuji why is it that he is putting his faith in him, somebody that he is meeting for the first time. Yuji states that this is because his seniors like Maki and Yuta have vouched for his strength. Hakari wants Yuji to realize that by asking for his help, he is going to be putting his life on the line for him. Does Yuji have what it takes to make him do that? Yuji ends up angering Hakari when he refers to himself as a cog. He is a part of this larger machine that sorcerers need in order to eradicate curses. Hakari is impressed by Yuji, who continues to get back up despite being hit repeatedly. Yuji reaffirms that he is a cog in the system that has a function to get rid of curses, and if Hakari is necessary to fulfill this purpose, then he will not give up until he agrees to work with them. The third year student realizes that Yuji is more than just a cog within the system. He sees the fire in his eyes. Hakari seems to be interested in excitement, as he describes it as heat, giving a vibe of burning passion. After witnessing Yuji's heat, he is convinced to help them. Kirara even comments that Hakari felt the most heat when he was helping people during his days at Jujutsu High. Hakari learns about all of the recent developments, including Gojo being sealed and Principal Yaga having died. He agrees to help them, but on one condition, that after the Culling Game, they will have to return the favor. Hakari wants to change some of the rules surrounding Jujutsu sorcery, presumably to favor his underground fight club that he is running. When he learns that Megumi is the head of the Zenin family, he feels that it would help him to change the laws if he had backing from one of the big three families. He then suddenly takes a liking to Megumi, as Hakari's tune completely changes after realizing how he can be benefited by their team up. Immediately after this, a device called a Kogane appears. It states an update that a player has added a new rule to the Culling Game. The new rule is that players can have access to information on other players, like their name, their points, or the number of rules that they have added to the game, and lastly their current colony that they are in. The player who had added this rule is revealed to be Hajime Kashimo. He comments that the players were much tougher 400 years ago, and he also questions where Sukuna is. Somehow Yuji is already a participant within the Culling Game. He questions whether if Sukuna has something to do with this. Megumi decides that they'll talk about this later. Megumi takes advantage of this new rule by asking Yuji to pull up the Kogane and to show the player info. He quickly learns the identity of the player who had just added this rule, deducing that Hajime Kashimo must have killed at least 40 people in the last few days in order to add this new rule. They then learn that the only other player that has 100 or more points is called Hiromi Higuruma. They want to add a rule that allows players to transfer points amongst themselves. This way, individuals won't lose their curse techniques and die, and if possible, they'll be able to add another rule, which will allow players to spend points in order to get out of the game. The team now has a plan of action. They need to find the angel Hana Kurusu in order to break the prison realm seal. Then they need to target Hajime Kashimo and Hiromi Higuruma, and this brings us to an end to the perfect preparation arc. This arc was perfectly titled, as it gets us ready for the events that are going to unfold within the Culling Game, and we can only imagine how Akutami is going to be utilizing all of these rules and the players' curse techniques in order to deliver us fascinating battles and intense storylines. There are a lot of plot points that we are following here. The first being to ensure the safety of Megumi's sister, the second being to free Gojo from the prison realm, and to achieve this they somehow need to acquire 100 points or to gain the trust of a player who has 100 points to add new rules to the game. I'm so invested into the story at this point, and I can't wait to see how the characters get on. Who are these players, Hajime Kashimo and Hiromi Higuruma, and what role does Sukuna play within the Culling Games? And now that we know the purpose of the Culling Game and the true motive of Kenjaku, will they be able to prevent him from evolving humanity by merging them with Master Tengen? I feel within the span of this 30-minute video we've covered so much material, and this is just over 2 very short story arcs. Jujutsu Kaisen is so dense and dialogue heavy, and I can't wait to continue diving into the story by making videos explaining various different concepts from the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, as well as doing some analysis videos on some of our favourite characters. So with us now caught up to the most recent completed story arc of Jujutsu Kaisen, I want to know what other topics or material you want me to cover from this series. Thank you for following me on this arc analysis series, and I can't wait to see you in my next Jujutsu Kaisen video. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, then please consider supporting my channel on Patreon. I have multiple tiers with rewards including access to an exclusive Discord server, video scripts, as well as being the first to know about unreleased upcoming videos. Thank you for your time, and whatever you choose to contribute I will appreciate, and it will mean a lot to me.